You might be wondering about this aesthetically challenged hunk of metal that's also egg-shaped that is currently sitting on my head. This is the East German M56/76 Stahlhelm, and it is also broken, so don't yell at me for not having my chin strap on because I will blow you up. Anyway, this was the most prominent standard issue helmet issued to the Nationale Volksarmee, which was the East German military. You're either thinking, yeah, that's a cool helmet, or you're thinking, wow, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. I personally have yet to decide between these two sentiments. It is a strangely egg, mushroom, some other third mystery item shaped helmet, and is an icon of the East German military. But how did this helmet evolve from its objectively sexier World War predecessors, and where did it come from? Let's talk about it.
First, let's rewind the clock. The Stahlhelm, or steel helmet, was officially introduced during World War I in 1916, but gained its notoriety in World War II. Of course, the East German Stahlhelms look wildly different from the World War II models, so where exactly did this drastic change start? Let's begin with the state of East German helmets directly after the formation of East Germany in 1949, and before the formation of its real military in 1956. East Germany was not yet allowed to rearm because, as we all know, Germany was pretty naughty in World War II, so instead of having legitimate armed forces to do armed forces duties, there was a large militia-like force formed by the Soviet military administration in Germany in 1952, named the KVP, or the Barracked People's Police, which ended up being the direct predecessor to the official military, the NVA. Due to the heavy Soviet presence and influence in the KVP, it first issued Soviet helmets and Soviet-style uniforms. And Czech helmets, actually. But the use of Soviet helmets in the KVP did not last long, as they were soon replaced by the M54 Stahlhelms, which were much more German-looking.
It didn't last long for a good few reasons, mainly because it just didn't perform well at all.
East Germany then needed another new helmet to complement the freshly formed East German Nationale Volksarmee in 1956. But of course, they still wanted something different from the Wehrmacht models.
Enter the M56, the M42's special cousin.
It was officially introduced in 1956 and issued en masse in 1957, but was conjured and tested years before as a World War II prototype, namely the Model B2. The Model B2 was conjured up alongside a few other helmets and was produced from 1942 to 1944 and sent to the Döblitz Infantry School for field trials. They found that it fared very well in field testing and was just overall easier to produce in general. So in 1944 they presented it to the big man. Hitler rejected this prototype mostly because he thought the Stahlhelm looked too good and too German to replace, which was the contrary to the B2 model, even if this prototype performed significantly better than the World War II models in combat testing. Anyway, the M56 was inspired by earlier Stahlhelm designs, but with notable modifications. Well, the most notable modification of it all is the shape, but the liner inside actually stayed very similar to the ones used in World War II. The M56 was meant to better protect the wearer while also symbolizing the East German departure from fascist themes, even though they totally ended up keeping the Wehrmacht appeal in their dress attire.
As the years went by in East Germany and the military uniforms evolved alongside everything else, the NVA decided that it needed a new evolution to its current helmet model. But before we get into the helmets, let's talk about the uniforms. Today, I want to thank Americana Pipe Dream for sponsoring this video, and for sending some really cool East German garb my way.
This video is sponsored by Americana Pipe Dream, a military surplus company that digs up the real deal relics of history and gets them into your hands. We're talking authentic field gear, uniforms, and Cold War era equipment from all over the world, alongside newer eras. Right now, they've got a wide array of East German military surplus, from Ushankas to Stricktarn, to field gear and flags, all straight out of the Stasi days. If you're lucky, you might as well come across some Blumenthal. And of course, they have a vast selection of other cool milsurps, all at great prices. You should check them out.
Anyway, back to helmet evolution. Then entered the M56/76 Stahlhelm in 1976. As the name might suggest.
This is also the most common model of East German Stahlhelm, presumably because there were more personnel numbers at this time, and because there were more resources, so they made more, and that's why there is a surplus of them.
So as you can tell, there are not a lot of changes in terms of shell shape, but there are some interior and exterior changes that are pretty key. So first of all, the M56/76 had an absence of rivets that the M56 had.
So here is a reference on those rivets. As you can tell, the shell has 3 little rivets.
Now, there were later models of the M56 that were released with a newer liner, such as the one visible in the M56/76. Please mind you guys that I'm on my 3rd liner, and this one also just broke, so this helmet's just completely cursed for me. But anyway, more about the liners. This is the interior of my personal M56/76 Stahlhelm. Now, as you can tell, it has a leather liner on top of a plastic cradle, is what it's called, and behind it there are 2 walls of sponge. The East German M56 helmet line is a very interesting line of helmets indeed. There is a definite Soviet and German influence all at once, and it's just kind of put into this funky little egg-shaped thing. And I don't know if I like it or not, but it works well. Despite its general ugliness, the M56/76 Stahlhelm is actually pretty widely agreed upon to have performed much better ballistically than the World War II ones and performed much better in field trials. And it also still remains an icon of the East German Democratic Republic's military. So what do you guys think? Is this a terrible helmet, or does it look actually pretty cool? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to check out Americana Pipe Dream for cool milsurp at neat prices. Also, please consider supporting the channel on Patreon, where you get cool stuff in exchange like extra photo shoots and behind the scenes content, all while being able to help me pump out more cool gear and videos for you guys. Hope you are all doing well. See you next time. Thank you guys so much for watching.